Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
I wouldn't go anywhere if I were you. Liam repeated for the 10th time that evening. Emma looked at her husband tiredly. He was good at everything, handsome, intelligent, and kind, but sometimes he didn't understand the simplest things. Liam, she repeated patiently. I already have the ticket. That's one. Clara is my favorite friend. We've been friends since we were kids. Our families know each other well, and that hasn't changed until now. That's two. Clara is best not to be traveling back and forth on trains right now. That's three. Count it, accountant. Liam grumbled resentfully. Maybe you'll count some more. What about it? Emma was already standing at the exit, adjusting the strap of her backpack on her shoulder. I'll be home soon. That's 4. And I'll call you a lot. That's 5. That's it. I'm gone. The husband was silent. Emma stood outside the door for another minute, hoping Liam would look out, wish her well, but he didn't show. Oh well, the wronged would be the wronged, especially since she knew Liam was resilient, like most people with a temper. By the time she got back, everything would be fine. She sprinted down the stairs. Let's go. Clara must be getting ready for the meetings by now. Liam knew that his wife would stand outside the door for a while, wait to see if he would come out to say goodbye, then look up at the windows as he left the entrance. Of course, he could wave goodbye to her. Emma would probably be pleased. He could, but he didn't want to. Liam had been angry with his wife a lot lately. Maybe it was the fact that he himself, having left his usual job, decided to change the sphere, but so far nothing had come of it. And Emma, instead of making a scandal, began to take additional work. It probably seemed to her that she supported her husband at a difficult stage of life, and Liam was angry because Emma had succeeded. You married a rag. Contemptuously through the mother. I would have already organized such a court ballot for my husband. I would have run to look for a normal job. His mother would have done it, and there was no doubt about it. Sometimes Liam thought that maybe that's why he was so weak in life, because all the way his mother told him what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. But his wife is loyal, soft, does not infringe on his freedom, and she, the fool, does not realize that it is not freedom that he needs. Anyway, he doesn't know what to do with his freedom, but good kicks to disperse it. He's Liam, a proud bird. If you don't kick him, he won't fly. The ringing of the doorbell pulled Liam out of his unhappy thoughts, had Emma returned. But on the threshold, wrapped up to her heels in a plush robe, stood the neighbor. The robe was so voluminous that Liam first thought he was looking at a giant plush cloud, from which a human head, with a curly ponytail on top of it, was unintentionally sticking. But then the head smiled, and Liam recognized her. Barbara? He was surprised. Emma's not home. She's gone to Chicago to see a friend, and she should be back by Friday. Barbara rested her shoulder against the door jamb. I didn't come to see Emma. I came to see you. Would you like some tea? Something was wrong here. There was a predatory interest in Barbara's whole appearance, in her insolent grin, even in that robe, which she hadn't bothered to scent properly. Well, come in, Liam said and stepped aside, letting the plush cloud into the apartment. Emma got to her friend's house quickly, because she lived not far from the station. I like to watch the trains come in. She explained her choice of accommodation. Someone meets relatives, someone meets friends, loved ones. Everyone is happy, laughing. We have a holiday here every day, and the noise every day. Emma clenched her ears, trying to shout out the rumble of the arriving train. You'll get used to it after a couple of days. Clara was not wrong. By evening, Emma's head was already puffy from the rumble, but she spent the night without waking up, and in the morning she was surprised to notice that the world around her had become much quieter. The world was still the same. It was just the noise effects that she was getting used to. Emma happily began to work on her friend's wedding dress. The work went easily between jokes, gossip, and eating homemade cookies. "How's the husband?" asked Clara during the tea break. "Does he call?" Emma shrugged her shoulders. "No, we had a little argument before I left. Probably still sulking." She tried to speak lightly and cheerfully, but the feeling was grim. Liam hadn't answered his phone, and he hadn't read any of her messages. Was he really that offended because of this trip of hers? That's ridiculous. "How are you guys doing?" Clara asked. Again a question to which Emma had no answer. "What can you say?" "That Liam is always chondritic, and she doesn't know how to help him. That she's very tired from work, but she doesn't have a chance to rest." "You're in a hurry." "With knowledge," said her friend. "You're worried now. Should we split up before it's too late? Or the children will go, and that's it. You cannot get out." "You will, you won't." Emma grumbled. "What's there to talk about now?" "You got married, didn't you?" "Married? Well, then we'll go on living." She didn't want to show that Clara's words had stirred something, whether it was anxiety or joy. The mere thought that she could just go and get a divorce made her heart jump with joy. But on the other hand, could she be so unserious about family? Family life, as you know, is not made of gingerbread. There are hard times and problems. What now, because of every trifle divorce? No, you can't do that. And yet, despite all the correctness of reasoning, Emma was sad. Was this really how it was going to go on? Work, Liam. Then, of course, they would have children, and she would never know what it was like to be married to the man she loved, nor would she know what love babies were like. Clara, noticing the tears in Emma's eyes, clucked her tongue softly. "Let me pour you some more tea," she suggested. Emma nodded. She went to the kitchen, poured tea, poured Emma a cup, poured a handful of cookies on a plate, added a few slices of chocolate. Someone had told her that chocolate was a strong antidepressant. "That's great, Emma. It's necessary." "You excuse me," she said, walking back into the room. "I shouldn't have started this conversation." "Nonsense." The girl sniffed her nose. "I'm the one who's a little rusty." "Here." Her friend put a plate with chocolate and cookies in front of her. "You'd better eat something sweet. It will help you from sadness and sorrow. I have more cakes in the fridge. I'll bring them right away." The evening before the wedding was warm and stuffy. Somewhere in the south, thunder rumbled, but the storm was still far away. The white lilies in the vase smelled especially bright. Emma moved away from the flowers. The scent of lilies always made her temples tingle, but her friend didn't seem to mind the lilies at all. She twisted back and forth in front of the mirror, trying to see herself from the back, sighing occasionally. "I still have my doubts, Emma." With doubt in her voice stretched Clara. It seemed to fit properly. The breasts were tight. It looked good. Hips are also beautifully emphasized, without vulgarity, but here, she patted her waist. "It's kind of fat, I think, like an elephant." Emma squatted down, and with an expression of deep concern on her face, examined every seam. "What can you do?" Being a dressmaker isn't just about making clothes. There are a lot of subtleties. You also need to understand the client, to know exactly how he sees himself, and if necessary, and praise. "I think everything is fine," she concluded, getting up. "But if you want, you can also wear a pelerina. It will visually widen the shoulders. Then the waist will seem thinner, although it is hardly necessary." Clara smiled sorely. "I should have listened to my friend right away." She had suggested making the dress looser, perhaps in the Greek style, and now it was too late to change anything. Emma, as if listening to these thoughts, affectionately touched the bride's shoulder. "Clara, darling," she said softly, "you are very, very feminine and beautiful." "Only fat." Clara grinned. "That's not true. You're pregnant, not fat. Of course you can't look like a ballerina now, but you don't have to. Why should you? You're a mom to be. That's great. Do you think so?" Emma nodded confidently. "I'm sure." Clara looked in the mirror again, but now she was smiling. "Thank you, Emma," she said with feeling. "Really, why did I bother with that waistline? Who needs it? In my position." She wanted to hug this cute, like a teenager, a girl with golden hands. After all, she managed to convince her that there was no need to pretend to be a ballerina 9 months pregnant. "What kind of dress did you make?" "Not a dress, but a work of art. Even put it in a museum." "Thank you, my dear," she repeated. "I want to thank you, but I don't know how. Why do I give you a bonus on top of what you've earned?" "No, Clara, don't." Emma waved her hands. "You'd better do this if someone asked you where you made the dress. From whom, tell Emma, and give me my coordinates, okay? It'll give me some extra publicity. What do you say, dear?" sighed Clara, and embracing Emma, kissed her on both cheeks. "It's a pity you can't stay for the wedding. My brother, Christian, wanted to see you. He is such a good man. He is in business. He makes good money. He bought a house for my mom. He pays for my youngest's education. But he doesn't have much time now. He'll be upset that you'll be away. And I'd like to see you." Emma smiled. "Explain everything to him. Don't let him take offense, and tell him I'm very happy for him. And may he continue to do well. Don't worry. I'll explain and pass on what you said. What can you do? You've got a family. Say hello to your husband." Emma, already on the train, remembered the conversation again, and her heart warmed. It was good that they lived not far from each other, even if they lived in different cities, but it was like visiting home. She and Clara had known each other since they were children. Time flows differently in southern cities, slower. People live differently there. They do not hurry, do not worry about every wasted minute. They do not hurry to live there, and probably that's why they live long. But Clara and Emma couldn't wait to become adults. They could have candy for breakfast. Emma dreamed aloud, and no need to go to school. And Clara was catching on. We'll be able to wear makeup and buy dresses with our entire paycheck. And to grow up faster, we have to eat porridge and vegetables. Shouted from the kitchen Emma Mom, "Wash your hands at the table." Childhood, how endless it seemed then. It smelled of quince and peaches, wormwood and sunshine. How eager were we then to become adults? And annoying and pestering childhood, like a faithful dog, ran after, grabbed the hem of the dress, did not let go. But time passed, and where is it? Hidden, lost in cozy courtyards where everyone knew each other. Or maybe it was not lost at all, but woven into the foliage of trees, into the fanciful ornament of carpets. Emma and Clara met in the 1st grade and remained friends for life. Their houses were across the street from each other, window to window, and the girls often shouted across the street, and then each got a scolding from her mother for being noisy and generally rude. What was this habit of shouting when one could come in and talk quietly? Clara had a large family: grandmother, grandfather, parents, and 5 children. Emma felt like it was always a party at home. How much fun when you have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And noisy at them how, from morning till night, talking, laughing. fighting, jokes, you want, and not bored. But Clara, I guess it didn't seem that way. It's fun, but sometimes you want to be quiet, she said. Clara often stayed overnight at her friend's place. The people in Emma's apartment were smaller, and the main thing was her own room. For Clara, who was used to the cramped and crowded apartment, it was an unprecedented luxury. Emma only had her mom and her cat Chestnut. How do you live like this? Clara asked confusedly. Aren't you bored? No brothers, no sisters. We got used to it, smiled Emma mom and quietly sighed. Actually, Emma had a brother, but he was much older. He managed to serve in the army and get married and settled with his wife in Washington. Since then, he had never been seen in his native place, but he wrote often and really wanted to come visit sometime, but work and family life kept him away. One day, my mother decided that since her son was so busy, we should go to see him. She was going to go to Washington on her vacation. But the door was opened not by her son, but by an unfamiliar guy, hairless to the point of impossibility. He introduced himself as the owner of the apartment and said that he had bought it through his acquaintances 4 years ago. His mother did not believe him, because letters from her son came from this address. After hearing this, the guy got quiet and offered to go into the apartment. Mom returned from Washington, D.C., very tired and almost transparent from thinness. The new landlord told her the true fate of her son. Kevin, the neighbors told her, had indeed once lived here with a woman whom he introduced to everyone as his wife. People noticed that this woman was old enough to be his mother, but they prudently kept silent, all the more so because the family looked happy. But one day all their happiness shattered, revealing the unseemly truth. Kevin's wife drank, and when drunk became unpredictable and, most importantly, aggressive. Once, for example, she beat up a neighbor for not giving her salt. Another time, she tried to break down the door to the downstairs neighbor's apartment because she thought they had a cat that meows endlessly. It was this second story that made Kevin realize that his wife needed professional help. The thing is that she was breaking into an apartment where no one had lived for 6 months. The wife did not want to go to a drug treatment center, but after much persuasion from her husband, she agreed. Kevin himself took her there and handed her over to the doctors. A week later, the wife escaped from the doctors and went home. Kevin at this time went to the store and met a neighbor there. He helped to carry heavy bags to the house and did not even suspect that his wife was watching him through the window. As soon as he entered the apartment, the woman threw herself at him with a kitchen knife. Reflexes saved the day. Kevin managed to somersault to the side, and the knife tore through the laminate floor, but did not leave a scratch on the man. Neighbors, hearing the woman's screams, called a psychiatric ambulance. Kevin's wife was sent back to the narcology clinic, and he himself that same night packed up and left, but where to, no one knew. He left the power of attorney for the transaction with the apartment to some acquaintances, who moved to another city immediately after the sale. After the trip, Emma's mom cried for a few days, and then suddenly pulled herself together and stopped sobbing. However, she also stopped remembering about her son. Before going to bed, Emma and Clara dreamed of the time when they would grow up and be able to go away too. Why did they want that so much? They didn't know. They loved their town and their homes, and it must have been the usual desire to see the world. Clara dreamed of Chicago. Chicago is beautiful, she smiled dreamily. Daddy says that even at night there is noise in the streets, lots of people, and the city at night is full of lights, signs, store windows. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Emma agreed, but she wasn't attracted to Chicago. Mama said it was lonely in Chicago. It buzzes and buzzes like a beehive. People go back and forth, push with an elbow, and they won't notice, step on your foot, and won't apologize. Emma wanted to go to Dallas. They have such beautiful buildings and parks. Can you imagine? Yes, Clara agreed. It must be nice there. It must be beautiful. Then we'll go to Dallas too, if only to grow up faster. Their dreams, which seemed so far away, came true surprisingly quickly. And now they are 17 years old, and they are standing at the airport, waiting for the start of check-in for the flight to Chicago. Their crying moms didn't go to see them off. So it's rocky. Emma's mom explained, "You're on your own. Just call me when you get there, and we'll sit here with tea. Christian will help you with the suitcases." All the way to the airport, the girls were silent and only occasionally exchanged frightened glances. For the first time, they were scared. They were torn away from their caring family, from their neighbors, from the city they had explored. And what lay ahead? Alien, huge cities where you never know what will happen. "Here we are grown up, Clara," Emma said confusedly. "We're all grown up now." Her friend nodded. And the girls wanted to be first graders again, though they did not dare to admit it, even to themselves. They waited and waited for childhood to end, but it stretched on, and suddenly it ended, without any warning. School, the last bell, and the early warm spring and summer, smelling of wormwood and apricots, were left behind. Everything. It's all left behind in childhood. Grow up and live as you know how. Christian, Clara's younger brother. The brother was holding the girls' suitcases. "Will you come for Christmas at least?" He smiled, but there was sadness in the depths of his dark eyes. Christian had been in love with Emma since he was 12, and she knew it well, but secretly laughed at the silly boy. What a love! Who does he think he is? He's just a little boy, 2 years younger than her. Why not fall in love with a girl his own age? What a character, honestly. She's against him like a grown woman against a kindergarten. But only now Emma noticed that Christian was no longer a little boy. He had grown up unnoticed. Of course, he was still a long way from being an adult. He was still a teenager, a lanky boy, thin and angular. But it was already noticeable how his shoulders were unfolding and his arms were becoming stronger. His facial features are becoming more confident, showing through on the half-childish face. A couple more years will pass, and Christian will turn from an unsuitable teenager into a tall, interesting guy. How handsome you've become, Christian. You've been growing up before our eyes, and now you've grown so big that I didn't even notice. Emma smiled. She wanted to say something nice to him in farewell. "You'll see soon all the girls will be yours." He only grinned, as if to say thank you, but he didn't say anything. And what was there to answer? As if he needed other girls. Clara fell in love with Chicago immediately and unconditionally. She immediately liked the bustling streets and the hustle and bustle of people. She liked to merge with the flow and hurry somewhere too. Emma, as she intended, moved to Dallas. This city seemed to her calmer and more human than Chicago. She was able to immediately enroll in a sewing school. Studying was easy, and Emma began working in the atelier even before receiving a diploma. It was there that she met Liam a couple years later. He came with his mother to evaluate her wedding dress. Mom was getting married for the 4th time, but she dragged her son with her to every fitting. Liam, to tell the truth, didn't show much interest. Most of the time he sat staring at his phone, and the endless. "Does it suit me, Liam?" He mumbled something vague. Maybe he would never have noticed Emma if chance hadn't helped. That day was the first time Liam lifted his head from his smartphone screen and spoke. "Girl," he called out, "do you have an outlet here?" The phone was completely dead. They got married exactly 6 months after this conversation, and nobody knew why. Not even the newlyweds themselves. It certainly wasn't love. Emma reasoned aloud. "At first I was still attracted to him, but it all dissipated quickly." Clara looked at her friend with sympathy. "If it's not love, then why are you getting married? You should marry for love." It was easy for her to say. Clara's parents had adored each other all their lives, to the trembling in their hands, to the shining eyes. But with Emma's family, things were very different. The parents separated right after the birth of their daughter. Emma never saw her father. Her mother had once fallen head over heels in love with a tall-shouldered athlete who was the main ringleader of the course. The soul of any company and the dream of half the girls. And if it hadn't been for my insouciance, Mom told me, I would have immediately noticed that he and Walk on the Girls are not a fool, and Drink Likes not a reliable man. They told me about it, but did I listen? I was in love. Your parents are lucky, Clara. Emma said to her friend. Love can come and go, so what then? I like Liam. He's a kind and warm guy. He has a good job. We'll get along. Clara answered only disapprovingly, clucked her tongue, and shook her head. Oh, Emma, you're in a hurry. Where are you in a hurry? What for? Christian won't tell me yet, or she'll get upset. In spite of the small difference in age, Christian was always a little brother to Clara, and she loved him more like a mother's love than a sister's. And Liam decided to get married because he was sick to death of his mother. The woman's frenetic energy was tiring him, who by nature was somewhat sleepy and apathetic. Mom was busy with work, and after that with dancing, drawing, and macrame. Mom read books at the speed of light. Mom was constantly divorced and remarried. Perhaps all of this could have been tolerated if it weren't for one thing, but Mom desperately interfered in the life of her only son. At her insistence, he went to study computer programming, although he was more drawn to music. At her will, he broke up with a group of skydiving friends. Mom thought that parachuting could only attract extremely stupid people. Understand, Liam, extreme lovers are looking for thrills because they are unable to experience them within the framework of ordinary events. But to defend a thesis, to make a scientific discovery, to write a useful program, finally to experience the catharsis of meeting with a genuine work of art, it is a little comparable feeling. But it takes brains to experience them. Dangling on a parachute between heaven and earth, much easier. The next victim of Mom's irrepressible energy was Liam's first love. The cute but faded grad student was, at first glance, the embodiment of Mom's dream. She'd been burrowing into books since first grade, graduated from school with a gold medal, and predictably entered a prestigious university. Perseverance, with which the excellent girl gnawed the granite of science, provided her with a red diploma and graduate school. In addition, the girl turned out to be surprisingly homely. By the age of 23, she contrived, not once in her life, not to be at a party, not to mention nightclubs. Her favorite pastimes after school, of course, were knitting and raising violets. She was wary of Liam. She enjoyed going to the movies and for walks with him, but not once during the whole year did she even let him kiss her. Every time he made another failed attempt to snatch a kiss from the pale lips of his graduate student, it ended in a big fight. I knew it. I knew it. The girl sobbed. All men are the same. You all want only one thing. When Liam complained to his mother one day about the unapproachability of his beloved, his mother decided to take matters into her own hands. The fact that the girl is decent, this is a plus, of course, but her stiffness can auction in family life. and that's a minus. For 2 whole months, Mom persistently slipped the girl all kinds of literature from the Kama Sutra to the Decameron. And when the literature was over, it was the turn of the movie. Wait, Liam, a little more and your future wife will be a real ideal, a queen in the living room, a cook in the kitchen, and a minx in bed. Liam waited patiently, but his mother's prophecy was not destined to come true. The postgraduate student, whether she turned out to be too diligent student or indeed the knowledge of theoretical basics, awakened the girl's interest in the practical part, but the fact remained. In 6 months there was not a single man from 18 to 80 in the whole neighborhood who would not have tasted her postgraduate charms. Liam, having learned about such fame, which had earned himself his unattractive girl, sobbed for 3 days and drank sobs, full glasses of whiskey. Grieving, he decided that this was the last time he would allow his mother to interfere in his personal life. So when Emma came into his life, Liam kept her from his mom almost until after the wedding. Liam's mom was furious about it and didn't even want to come to her only son's wedding. Then she, however, changed her mind and still came, but only to raise the first toast for the young couple and to address to all present with a fiery speech. "My dears," she began solemnly, "on this day we are gathered here. But well, I confess, quite frankly, I dreamed of a very different wife for my son. I have always said that you can't deny such a concept as the social circle. Today, it is considered prejudice and ridiculed, but I continue to insist on my point. Gastarbeiter girls from Central Asia would be more suitable. Well, say, market trader or loader? Well, and a boy from a decent family need a bride with a university education, intelligent profession, and a wide outlook. Don't you agree with me?" She looked around the audience with a questioning look. The guests looked at each other perplexedly, and the bride and groom did not raise their eyes from their plates. "Yes," as if nothing had happened, Liam's mother continued, "That's my opinion, but fate has decided otherwise. Personally, I'm sure this marriage won't last long, but maybe the young will surprise us and live together all their lives. Let's drink to that. Bitter." She raised her glass high, but no one joined her. Liam looked guiltily at his bride, and Emma didn't want to look at anyone at all. The party was ruined, and Emma hadn't seen her mother-in-law since, and Clara stayed in Chicago, and now she was getting ready for the wedding. Emma refused to charge her friend for the dress, but Clara couldn't argue with her. "What am I, a beggar?" she asked indignantly. "I can't pay you." "You're my friend." Emma fought back, but in vain. Clara didn't want to hear anything. "Do you have a lot of extra money? Are you making millions at the Atelier? Don't argue then. I'll pay what I need. And don't get stubborn, or I won't order from you. I'd rather buy a dress in any store." Emma only smiled and shook her head. Her friend was always as stubborn as 1,000 words. Liam didn't answer the phone. Probably sleeping after work. Emma had long ago gotten used to her husband's sleep. If he was asleep, she couldn't wake him up, even with a cannon. Poor Liam, he had no luck with work lately, and had to make a few odd jobs here and there. He was fired from a successful IT company for a server that went down and wasn't repaired in time. It seemed to Emma that finding a new job would not be too difficult. After all, IT people are needed everywhere, but Liam was in no hurry to find a job. "I'm tired, Emma," he confessed. "I want to have a rest and do another job, something where I don't have to think. Something physical would be perfect, and I'll get fit, or else watch." He put both arms out in front of him. "I'm already starting to get fat." Emma sighed. There was nothing to object to, especially about the fat. but why work hard when you could stay in your field? And to get fit, all you had to do was go to the gym. We could only hope that her husband's vacation would not last long. However, this hope was melting not by days, but by hours. Liam had been resting from mental work for 6 months. From time to time, he was hired as a loader, but always for a short time. Money in the family became catastrophically lacking, and Emma had to take private orders in addition to working in the atelier. "We'll have to have a serious talk," wistfully she thought as she got off the train. "We'll have to, even if we don't want to." She thought, jolting through the subway and then the minibus. The journey was surprisingly exhausting. More than anything, she wanted to get home, throw off her sneakers, and fall into bed without even undressing. "Too bad you can't stay for the wedding." She remembered Clara's words. Emma felt sorry too. It had been so long since she had a vacation, and at the wedding there would be music and fun, and Christian would come. She wondered what he had become like. She also wanted to ask him about his hometown, about his neighbors, to remember their childhood and laugh heartily, but only tomorrow to work. That was the official version, and Emma had never thought of a more stupid excuse. First of all, tomorrow was a day off. Secondly, Emma knew that the owner of the atelier would let her go for a couple of days, but what about the fact that she had nothing to wear? It was customary to be dressed up for a wedding, and Emma's closet consisted of 1 pair of jeans, 2 t-shirts, and a cardigan in case of strong wind. And in such a form will show up at the holiday best friends. No, I'd rather talk myself out of a crazy busy day. The dark silhouette of the house was already looming in the twilight. Emma found her windows by habit and smiled. The lights were on, which meant Liam was probably already there and even awake. If so, she could postpone the unpleasant conversation until tomorrow and just take a bath, climb into bed, and bask in her husband's arms. Already at the entrance, Emma was she could not find her keys in her pocket. Just in case, she took off her cardigan and shook it well. Some change rattled in her pocket, some crumpled paper fell out and spun in the air like an autumn leaf. So the keys are in the backpack. The crumpled paper fell on the asphalt right at the girl's feet. Emma bent down to pick it up, and at the same second someone shoved her forcefully in the back. "Ouch!" she shrieked, falling to her knees. The backpack fell off her shoulder, and Emma was pushed again, but more forcefully this time. She threw her hands down, protecting her face, and fell to the pavement. Behind her were the sound of someone's receding footsteps. The sound of those footsteps was somehow very confident and insolent, as if the man had just gone for a walk, not robbed a defenseless girl. Money for the dress, keys, passport. Emma summarized the losses mentally, lying on the damp asphalt. She didn't want to get up, by the way. Perhaps even on the contrary, she wanted to get comfortable and sleep at least a little. Get up. There's nothing to lie around for. Strictly, the girl said to herself, rising to her knees, "We'll rest at home." The door to the apartment was ajar. Liam? What a man! Again forgot to lock it. Liam? Emma called from the corridor. "Liam, where are you?" "I'm here." No one answered her, but there was a rustle in the back of the apartment. "Liam?" Emma walked into the kitchen, peered into the bathroom, and saw unfamiliar pale green towels. Her husband's stubborn silence was beginning to irritate her. Emma walked straight down the hall to the bedroom. The door was locked, but it was behind it. She could hear it clearly now, and there was that quiet rustle. "Well, I found you." Emma smiled and opened the door wide, ready to be in Liam's arms to extinguish the negativity of stealing the backpack. "Didn't they teach you to knock?" A sleepy female voice asked. Emma looked around. Who is it? Well, it's me. The blanket on the unmade bed stirred, revealing disheveled blonde hair and a disgruntled woman's face. Barbara? Emma muttered to herself, recognizing her roommate. Barbara, is that you? Where's Liam? The neighbor pulled herself up, and the blanket slid down completely, revealing that Barbara was sleeping naked. He'd gone to his mother's, I think. She called him and asked him to come right away. Why are you here? The neighbor lost her eyes. Did you come to get your things? Didn't Liam call you? He said he'd call. It's weird, I told him. Emma looked around and suddenly realized that she didn't recognize her house. Someone had removed the curtains from the windows and put blinds instead. The wallpaper was half ripped off, and there was a new mirrored armoire in the room. What's going on here, Barbara? She asked with obvious surprise. I see. The neighbor yawned. He didn't tell you anything, Ashol. Okay. She got up and slapped her bare feet on the floor. Let's go to the kitchen. Emma followed like an automaton. Things had changed in the kitchen, too. The tables and chairs were strange. A new flipped calendar was on the wall. The cups into which Barbara poured the tea were also unfamiliar, as Emma had no such cups in her household. Barbara, maybe I'm at the wrong door, she suggested stupidly. The neighbor only hummed in response. The wrong door? No, you chose the right door. It's just that, you see, it's not your apartment anymore. That's the way it is, Emma. That's the way it is. Emma squeezed her eyes shut and shook her head. No, it wasn't a dream after all. Then we'd have to find out more. How not mine? She asked cautiously, which amused her neighbor. The apartment is not yours, but Liam's, and it was his before he married you, and my apartment is rented. I got tired of paying rent, so I've already moved to my beloved Liam for good, and moved my things, as you can see. To your lover and me? Emma was completely confused. Where should I go, and where will I live now? What I don't know, I don't know. The neighbor replied indifferently. You have nothing to do here, by the way. Your things are in the closet. I didn't throw anything away. You can take it now. Will you take it? I'll take it. The girl nodded absent-mindedly. I will, yes, I will. If someone had told Emma that one day she would find herself on the street at night with no money, no passport, and no idea where to sleep, she would never have believed it. Liam's phone was still not answering, but somehow that was no longer important at all. Emma sank tiredly onto the bench outside the driveway. Actually, local grandmothers usually sat here, but the time was late and pensioners, most likely, had already finished their tent sleep. Now the girl even envied them. The night brought a light, refreshing breeze, and with it the desired coolness. Overhead, the leaves rustled slightly, and it seemed that the trees were singing a quiet lullaby. Where are you going now? A cracked, aged voice sounded behind her back. Emma looked back. In front of her stood a pensioner, a neighbor from the first floor. Timo, a French bulldog, was jumping at her feet. Had she crawled out of the bushes? Hello, Doris. The girl said hello politely. Aren't you afraid to go out so late? Here is a new discovery. It turns out that not all grandmothers sleep at night. Some even make promenades. In Doris's case, however, there was nothing to be surprised about. The most active old lady in the neighborhood had insomnia, which she complained incessantly to all the neighbors. Did they kick you out after all? Gloomily stated the old woman. Kicked out. I knew it. I never liked your Liam, by the way. Why? Emma asked, surprised. There was no hurry anyway, and if that was the case, why not talk? Doris curled her lips in contempt. "He's a slacker and a mama's boy," she declared and raised a curved index finger in a firm, convincing manner. "Not only is he a slacker, he's also a womanizer." "A womanizer, I tell you." "Uh-huh." The girl nodded. "I see. A womanizer and a slut." The conversation turned out to be boring. Emma hoped for some useful information about her husband's whereabouts, but it seemed the old woman was just recounting the usual backyard gossip. There was nothing to talk about. Too bad Emma was going to file for divorce as soon as she got her passport back, but Doris was really talking, and she wasn't going to stop talking. "Don't you believe me?" she said angrily. "I can see that. I can see that you don't believe me. I'll tell you something. You wanted to trust a man, and now you're sitting on the street at night, and you have nowhere to go. Who's the fool then?" The last sentence made Emma smile. The old woman almost shouted it, still waving her finger. But now she was no longer pointing at the sky, but waving it almost at the girl's nose. "Doris?" Emma smiled. "Can I stay with you?" "Only until morning. I'll spend the night, and then the blossom will bloom, and I'll go to look for a place to live." The pensioner's mood instantly changed from belligerent to sad. "Where am I?" she sighed. "I have a one-room apartment, and the sofa is also only one, and that is all wrinkled, sold out." "No, Emma, I'm sorry, but I won't let you in. What if you steal something?" Doris's ability to fire off unexpected conclusions was uncanny. Emma couldn't help but laugh. You young people are always like that. Grandmother was offended. Laughter is laughter, but not a dime's worth of conscience. They're young people, and they're just time-o home. The bulldog came to the entrance, waddling funny, waddling on his crooked paws. Emma, chuckling, got up from the bench. It was worth trying to find a roof over her head, at least for tonight. She walked down the sidewalk, trying to stay close to the light of the street lamps. She felt surprisingly light and even happy. After all, wouldn't it be nice not to have to listen to Liam's whining every night about his apathy, his unemployment, his inability to find a use for himself? It wasn't her problem anymore. Emma stopped and took a few deep breaths of the fresh night air. If she could just find some shelter, she could start to consider herself happy. Just then, her gaze fell on the glass box of a convenience store. On the door was a white sheet of paper, handwritten with an advertisement, "Cleaning lady needed. Apply to the store." Here was a chance. Emma resolutely grasped the doorknob and pulled it open. It was cool inside, the walls and floor tiled with identical tiles. The counters were lined with a simple assortment: tea, coffee, mineral water, and beer. Of the food here were only a couple of ready-made salads and a few kinds of cheese. "I'm from the ad." Emma addressed the girl behind the counter. "Do you still need a cleaner?" The girl didn't answer her right away. Apparently, she dozed off at the workplace and did not immediately understand the question. "Maybe I need to talk to the owners? You know, about the job." "Oh, well, I am the boss. I'll be right there. Just wait a minute." The girl disappeared from sight, but returned quickly, carrying a cup of coffee in her hand. "You're still here," she smirked. "You're stubborn. My name is Cindy, by the way, and I'm in charge of this store." The convenience store owner eyed the girl suspiciously. "Do you always go to work at night to get a job? Or only on Friday and Saturday nights?" Emma shrugged her shoulders. "Tonight's the first time. I just don't have a place to sleep, and I was walking by, and I saw an ad on your door saying you were looking for a cleaner. I can start right away. I just have a favor to ask. Can I sleep here tonight?" On the counter? The landlady grinned. Why on the counter? Emma pretended not to notice the teasing. At the counter, customers will see. Do you know what they were waiting for? Nothing but what they were waiting for. It turns out that this old fly Agaric had 7 ex-wives. No lie, Emma, 7. What's that supposed to mean? And how many mistresses he had, I didn't even count. So they began to read us the will, and there, dear mother, money. Just like a fool's wrappers, you can't give, you can't take. And all this, he calculated and divided it. But for some reason, not equally, but as God would have it, he left me this shop. I'm here and brought everything up to speed, repairs, counters, all that stuff. And what I've invested, I'd like to get a return. But it's hard to get a return, Emma. You see how things are here. And here I am, tied up in this store, and I can't get in or out. So there's not much money here, and there's nowhere to get it. But that doesn't matter to you, does it? Aha! Emma nodded again. I've got my own problems. That's good. All right, go rest in your suite. First cleaning tomorrow at 6. When Emma finally managed to lie down, on the bag spread out on the floor, and close her eyes, she thought, quite honestly, that life seemed to be going well again. The morning was gray, and yesterday's euphoria of newfound freedom had faded away without leaving a trace. That's how it is now, in a bare-walled room with mops in the corners. Emma almost cried with resentment at the injustice of fate, but she managed to pull herself together. After all, whining didn't make anyone feel better, but it was worth it to praise herself for her ingenuity in finding a place to stay. Emma decided that she would reward herself with something tasty. The positive mood certainly increased her strength, but from time to time, especially in the evenings, she felt a little gloomy. It turns out that you have to rebuild your life from scratch. Every night, Emma dreamed of waking up and realizing that everything that had happened to her in the last 2 days was just a nightmare dream that was finally over. But morning came after the night, and the girl realized, no, she hadn't dreamed at all. All around were the same ugly gray walls of the back room. In the corner stood buckets and mops. No, it wasn't a dream. She tried calling her husband a couple more times, but it was no use. Besides, Emma had already realized that it wouldn't do any good anyway. But if she got through, for example, so what? If this cretin Liam was even the slightest bit concerned about his wife's fate or a possible divorce, he would have contacted her long ago. Realizing the pointlessness of her actions, Emma stopped calling. She had enough to do. 6 days a week, at 5:30 a.m. sharp, Emma woke up to the alarm clock ringing, brewed herself a cup of coffee, had breakfast, whatever God sent, and washed up in the back kitchen. At 6 o'clock, she had to start cleaning. She usually finished around 7, and then she could go to sleep until 9 o'clock or even 10:30. A blissful time, perhaps the best of the day. The atelier opened at 10 and worked until 8. At work, Emma did not tell anyone about her changes. For some reason, she was ashamed to admit that her husband had abandoned her and practically thrown her out on the street. The time for the second cleaning was at 9:30 in the evening, and after that the workday was over. Emma brewed 2 large mugs of tea for herself and Lucy, the night clerk. They snacked on cookies and chatted about this and that for about 20-30 minutes. What are you going to do next? Lucy asked. It's not a century for you in the back room. What's next? I don't know. Emma answered honestly. I don't even want to think about it yet. It was true. Emma suddenly felt in her room what she could not feel, even in Liam's apartment, the smooth flow of life. She was carried along by the river of time, and the main thing was not to resist, but just to try to catch the current. She caught and then let the current carry her, and she knew for sure that everything that happens at the right moment, so there was no point in fussing. Even you and me, she tried to explain. Have you ever noticed that when you and I are having tea, nobody comes in here? But when we put away our cups, it's a blizzard? Lucy finished cheerfully. Well, what's true is true. On the evening of the third day, a tall man entered the store. Lucy looked at him with interest, hiding behind the cash register. The stranger was obviously here for the first time. Lucy knew all the regular customers, but this was the first time she had seen him. And he didn't look like the usual contingent of people who shop in places like this. He was too good-looking, smooth-shaven, and neat, not like the usual drunkards who mostly came here at night. His clothes were expensive, but they were well cut and perfectly tailored. His shoulder-length hair was black as pitch, but this hairstyle had nothing in common with a man's overgrown haircut. No, the hair was well-groomed and shiny, obviously done by a good barber. Good evening. Lucy said hello. The stranger, who until that moment had been studying the assortment on the shelves, turned at the voice and pulled his sunglasses off the bridge of his nose. His eyes were dark and slightly slanted. What had this Aladdin lost here? Hello, he said, startling the girl again. Lucy expected to hear an Oriental accent, but the guy spoke in the purest English. I'm looking for Emma. I was told she worked here. Emma? Yes, of course. Don't go away. I'll call her right away, or even. Emma was already dozing off when there was a knock on the back room door. Lucy, is that you? A girl shouted through the door. Come in. It's not Lucy. A pleasant male voice said, and the door swung open. You have no idea how hard it was to find you. Emma squinted against the bright light, came closer, and suddenly screamed with joy. Christian! Emma! He picked her up under her knees, lifted her up, and spun her around the back room. Christian! The girl laughed happily, tasseling the long black strands in her fingers. How he has grown! And what a hair, Mommy! No, wait, let me go. Christian gently set her down on the floor. Emma, looking up at him from below, again and again ran her hands over his face, stroked his broad shoulders, which had become so masculine. He's all grown up, she repeated admiringly. And how handsome you have grown. You look like an Oriental prince. And I, she added, with a quick glance at her washed jeans and worn t-shirt, I look like a dirty little girl. He smiled affectionately, brushing the loose strands of hair out of her face. You look beautiful in any outfit, he said softly, as if he were hugging her with words. Remember how crazy I was about you? Listen, you're already resting, aren't you? Let's go somewhere, shall we? Emma shook her head. Where? Look at what I look like. Christian, unlike her, didn't see it as a problem. So let's go to the store and buy you some clothes you like. No. The girl interrupted him. Everything's closed, so we'll have to make do with what we have. Let me make us some tea. The time for talking and reminiscing flew by. At 200 at night, Emma looked at her watch. Oh, how did I miss it? I have to get up soon. Did you stop somewhere? Christian smiled carefree at the girl like a sunshine. His smile was really wonderful. Nowhere, but out in a car. I can get a good night's sleep there. Don't worry about me, okay? I won't. In the old days, Emma would have offered to let him stay at her house and fed him and put him to sleep in the most comfortable bed. It was the way she'd been accustomed to welcoming guests since she was a child. I wonder if he thought about it too and only realizes that things were different now. She had no home, no bed, and of the food available only cookies, that she was glad to have him, It was just that she had nothing at all to offer him except tea and crackers. It's strange. It seemed like nothing to be ashamed of. Life's little twists and turns, isn't it? But it was hindered and tormented by the habit of hospitality, imbibed from his mother's milk, and he felt ashamed in front of Christian. I wouldn't be offended. I'm so embarrassed. She confessed. You came to visit me, and I didn't receive you properly. Christian was an angel, that Oriental prince. Come on, Emma. You don't even know what a great welcome you gave me. No, really, I haven't had a vacation like this in 100 years. You don't have to act. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to do anything. Just be yourself, you know? Emma nodded without raising her eyes. She understood. I'm going to go. He leaned toward her, tall, statuesque, and touched her cheek gently with his lips. Oh, what a thing! He had once been half a head shorter than her, and she and Clara had teased him about being short. Good night, Emma. I'm glad we got to see each other. Bye, she muttered, closing the door behind him. Her cheek, where Christian had kissed her, was burning. Emma climbed onto the mountain of sacks that served as her pastel and hid her face in her hands. How quickly things sometimes changed. A week ago she had lived a life, albeit a dull, orderly one, where roles had been assigned for many, many years to come, and no changes were imminent. In that life, Emma had been a faithful wife to Liam, the best dressmaker in the Atelier. She had a house. She had a decent bed, but now she has no husband, no home. She sleeps in a back room on dusty bags, and beneath the cool palm of her hand on her cheek, another man's kiss burns. And it doesn't help. It doesn't cool her down. It doesn't put her brain in place. It seemed to Emma that she could even make out the exact imprint of Christian's lips. And that's how an old life becomes a new one. First one little change you might not notice, then a second, a third, and then you don't recognize your own familiar world. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? There's another knock at the door. Lucy, come in. The door opened. Christian came in. Sorry, Emma, it's me again. May I? I think I left my cell phone at your place. Have you seen it? I'll be right there. I'll be right there. She didn't want him to see her like this, shot, flushed, swept away. The phone was found. Christian had left it on the windowsill, next to his cup. Here you go. Thank you. But he didn't leave. He stood on the doorstep, fidgeting with his cell phone and staring at Emma. Smiling black eyes, so familiar or not. It's Christian, my friend's little brother. I've known him since he was a kid, and now he's looking at me in a way that makes me want to drown in his gaze. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. I'm not made of iron. When did you get so big, baby? You're not a kid anymore. You're a man. It's been so long since I've seen you grow up. I guess he's had enough changes in his life. He's a changed man, a new man, a new man. Do you want me to leave? He asked quietly. She was silent, not knowing what to say to him, not daring to look up at him. No, I don't. Don't go, please. Don't go anywhere. You're different now. I don't know how to tell you that. I don't know what's happening to me, but you do. You do. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask me anything. So you see, don't ask me. Don't ask me. Just don't go. And again, the question is quiet on the edge of my ear. Do you want me to stay? I don't know. I want you not to go. I want to hold you, but I'm scared. I can't look at you because you'll read everything in my eyes. I can't put my arms around you, but I want to. I want it so badly. You decide. Don't make me choose. It was as if he'd heard her thoughts. He stepped forward, and the door slammed slowly behind him, as if there was no escape. That's it. There's no turning back now. Look at me, he asked in a whisper. Please look at me. Emma shook her head, covered her face with her hands, unable to pull away. I can't now, don't insist. He didn't insist. The girl felt warm hands on her shoulders, sliding down, closing around her back, pulling her close. Waves rolled in, the stupefying scent of his perfume or his skin. It smelled of wind, of steppe grasses and fire, and something else, elusive, incomprehensible, but painfully familiar. A green field, and the sunlight with multicolored sparks, the scorching heat of midday, the glitter of icy water and the smell of the sun. Yes, this was it. She could remember after all. It smelled like home. Home and sunshine. Christian drew her to him slowly, unhurriedly, a barely perceptible pressure, and now they were getting a little closer. The thoughts were over. It was only when she pressed her cheek against his chest that the girl felt a peacefulness, as if she had finally found what she had been looking for a terribly long time and had already despaired of finding. And it had come on its own, caressed her dark eyes, enveloped her in an embrace, and the word love, it came into her head all by itself. Through the tiny window in Emma's room, the first pale rays of dawn crept in. Today she hated the morning. What was it in such a hurry for? She, for one, had had a good night's sleep. We've got to get up, said Emma with a sigh. 6 o'clock for work. She pressed her cheek against Christian's naked shoulder and could lie like that all day, and then night, and another year, and all her life. Don't sleep, he whispered. Sleep, my darling. His long fingers ran through Emma's hair. Do you believe it? He said thoughtfully. Always, this is what I wanted most of all. To run my hand through your hair and stroke it, stroke it, stroke it, dreamed of it. I couldn't sleep at night, thinking about it all the time. I even imagined it like some kind of a fix-it idea. Well, it's a dream come true. Emma made a lazy attempt to get up, but Christian pulled her to him again. Go back to sleep. You don't have to be up by 6 o'clock. It's your store now. What? Well, he reached up and pulled the girl tighter against him. I bought it for you. The shopkeeper agreed right away. She was even happy. I'll bring the papers later. They were left in the car. I wanted to tell you yesterday, but I didn't have time. I don't want you to scrub the floors. Now get some sleep. It's been a long time since we slept. A year later, Lucy was putting another batch of goods on the shelves. Here we go. She smiled at her landlady. Last time we took delivery together. You're leaving. Aren't you sorry to part with Dallas? Emma laughed merrily and carefree. Outside the window, snowflakes danced in the evening sky. Christmas was coming soon, and this time there would be no snow on New Year's Eve and no frost. There would be no need to brew mulled wine and put on a warm sweater. Of course, she's sorry to leave. Sorry, but not too sorry. But now you'll be the store manager, she said lightly, and I'll come and visit. But still, Lucy wondered. You've lived here for so many years, and now you're not sorry to leave it all behind. Maybe I am, Lucy, but I guess it's fate. My happiness is in my hometown, not Dallas. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go. Especially since I'm... Yeah, I know. Lucy winked. Your Aladdin is waiting for you there. Christian, corrected Emma, although the name Aladdin suits him too. I promised him I'd be there as soon as I'd sorted out the current situation. Well, I've sorted it out, found someone to leave the store with, and we're good to go. She was actually being a little deceitful. No matter how much she loved Dallas, she couldn't wait to finish the last few things she had to do and go home. Emma couldn't say for sure what she wanted more, her hometown or just her lover. Of course she missed her city. She missed its houses and fairy tale streets, its special smells that were not found anywhere else. She missed the heat and the huge low stars in the night sky. But she realized, even though she was afraid to admit it to herself, that she missed Christian much more. Emma missed the city, but she could live without it. Not without Christian, it seemed. The doorbell jingled softly, and footsteps sounded in the store. "We have guests," Lucy said slowly and meaningfully. "Christian?" The name flashed into her mind, illuminated with happy hope. It could well be him. He, in each of his work trips, tried to find a little time to visit his beloved. Emma still remembered Christian calling her a week after their first night together. "Would you be able to come to the airport today?" he asked. "About 9 o'clock p.m. I only have half an hour between flights." Emma laughed. "We won't even have time to talk in half an hour. We won't talk, but I want to kiss you. Come over if you can. I'll be waiting." She was going to the airport, laughing inwardly at her own stupidity, if she had ever seen it, to rush across the city for 30 minutes in a crowd of people, because she flew into the airport building, almost knocking down a woman with a colossal pile of suitcases. She hastily apologized, scurried around the hall, looking for Christian, and not finding him. Late. In the end, the flight was rescheduled, set a little earlier. Then came the panicky thought, wouldn't he be offended? What if he thought she hadn't come because she didn't want to see him? He was always proud. He would never say a harsh word, but he would close himself off from her forever. That last thought made her want to scream. She couldn't lose him. "Please, God, not this, please. Emma." That voice, the soft intonation and slightly rough timbre, she could never mistake it for another. She managed to turn around exactly a second before the last step, and instantly, the burn from those black eyes, from the smile, the sweet pain somewhere in the area of the heart. "I saw you and I was burned," he whispers, pulling Emma close to him. "You just turned to me and your eyes were so. They made me blue, even hurt a little here." He presses her palm to his chest, looks into her eyes and whispers again, "I think it hurts, don't you? You make it feel good." "Oh, I've forgotten." He spreads his jacket and pulls out a red rose, already crumpled between their bodies. "I wanted to find flowers for you, but I found only this." Returning home, Emma pressed the crumpled, wilted flower to her lips. The next day the rose came back to life. It was now their custom to see each other at every opportunity. Perhaps today too. Emma turned around the guest and did not immediately realize her mistake. Straight to the counter, to Lucy, leisurely walked her ex-husband Liam. Why did the devils bring this one? Liam walked past her as if he hadn't even noticed her. "I know." He turned to Lucy. "There's a girl who used to work here as a cleaner. Her name's Emma, blonde, medium height. Can I see her? Do you remember the girl's last name?" Lucy asked, just to stall for time. Emma hadn't seen her ex-husband in a year. She even wrote in the divorce petition that she did not want to be present. Let them divorce in absentia. But now she couldn't help but notice how much Liam had changed. She had married a slender, lean guy, but now he was sluggish and fat. A loose belly weighed itself over his belt. The oval of his face lost its former clarity. His features became blurred. Liam had a second chin, and his face was overgrown with sloppy stubble. "Does he drink?" "Emma," he said it again. His voice had grown coarse too, a kind of cold. "Emma Harris. Can I see her?" Lucy shrugged. "You can, except she's not a cleaner now." Liam seemed pleased by that. Really? So when can I see her? Emma silently walked up behind him and winked at the girl. Right now. Liam instantly recognized the familiar voice. Emma? What's up? I thought you were mopping the floors here. I was. She corrected me calmly. So what did you want to talk to me about? He was confused. That's how it is, isn't it? He thought he was going to a shabby, exhausted Cinderella, but he came to the princess. There she is. Instead of stains and ashes, a fresh blush instead of pallor, a light tan, and by the impeccable manicure, it is obvious that long ago she has not held sexual rags in her hands. I can't get used to you. He confessed honestly. I didn't expect it. Emma laughed a quiet, iridescent laugh. What coincidence? She couldn't get used to him either. How could she not look for the boy she had once fallen in love with in this formidable and slow man? And was it necessary? You don't have to get used to me, she said. There's no need for it now. She said it without reproach, just stating the fact. But still Liam felt a sense of hopelessness. How calmly she had spoken to him. Had she grown cold, fallen out of love? Was it for good? Nothing left? I wanted to tell you. He started but stopped talking and glanced at Lucy, who instantly took the hint and went to the warehouse. Liam exhaled. God bless her, honestly. Some people are so tactful. You must have been very surprised when... Well then, he had hoped that Emma would help him, that she would say what he could not dare to say. But she did not say a word, and Liam hated her for her cruelty. When you came home and found out, with difficulty he finished and raised his eyes to his ex-wife. Emma was silent. Liam felt a burning blush flood his cheeks. Yes, she was surprised. It was unpleasant, to be honest. And I have to tell you what happened then, why I did it. It's a strange thing, isn't it? Emma dropped it carelessly. Weird? Yeah, I guess you're right. I did something weird. No, that's not what I mean. The girl said in the same indifferent, nonchalant tone. The strange thing is that then you didn't want to explain anything to me, and now for some reason you want to, although you don't have to, because no one else does. No need. Well, maybe, but since I'm here anyway. Remember when you went to make your friend's dress? Clara? Of course I remember that. And Barbara came to me and told me that there was no Clara, and that in fact you had gone to your lover. Emma's eyes went wide with amazement. What? Who? I didn't believe it either. Liam brightened, but his smile faded quickly, and she showed me pictures, lots of them, a whole bunch of them. Here. He took out his phone and handed it to Emma. I reshot them just in case. Emma glanced at the screen. And it didn't bother you that in these pictures, my hair is almost twice as long as it should be. Even I can see that it's photoshopped, and it's pretty primitive too. Liam blushed again. I wasn't thinking straight at the time, he confessed. I was jealous. My brain was melting, and Barbara was encouraging me. I don't know how it happened that we ended up in bed. And enough. Emma interrupted his revelations. Are you a grown man, Liam? Sort out your instincts for yourself and spare me the details. You're right. He hastily agreed. I know it must be very unpleasant to hear it from the outside. I'm sorry, of course you're right. All right, why bring it up? Emma sighed. It's in the past. So I suppose you've said your piece now, have you? No. Liam shook his head. I haven't said the main thing yet. It was my mother who talked the neighbor into setting you up, and I was a fool to fall for it. Barbara told me that before we broke up. Yes, we broke up, she cheated on me, and accused me of being a bad man. Boring. But But that's not true, is it? Emma shrugged. She didn't care at all what kind of man Liam was. She had nothing to do with him anymore. And now that we both know the truth, we might as well start over. A clean slate, as they say. Emma's gaze was incapable of conveying the full range of her feelings. There was indignation at the simple-minded impudence with which her ex-husband had voiced his proposal, and contempt for Liam's immaturity, and even some sympathy for her. "What do you say?" He hurried up. "Now there are no more misunderstandings between us. I'm not going to listen to my mother anymore. Could we try?" No, Liam couldn't. "I'm sorry." Emma didn't think long about her answer. She didn't want to go into explanations, and she couldn't wait for this pointless conversation to end. But Liam interpreted her directness differently. "You have someone?" he asked bluntly. "I do, don't I?" Only now did Liam notice the thin gold band on Emma's finger, a ring that looked too much like a wedding ring. "There is someone, isn't there?" "Answer me." "But why do you want it?" she asked softly. "Is there someone?" "There is no one. We wouldn't be together anyway, after what you—" "Don't you understand? I could never trust you again, never. And how can you live with someone you don't trust? Go, Liam. We've already talked about everything." Liam sighed and headed for the door. For some reason his steps were shuffling, like those of an ancient old man. "Oh," Lucy sighed. "Something tells me he'll be back again. Let him." Emma agreed and smiled, remembering her favorite Christian. "I won't be here anyway. I'll be where I'm meant to be,